going back to the beginning of the podcast, we talk about, the violence that we're facing as a law enforcement culture. It's upon us as air crews to take the extra step to learn how to be effective, integrated air crews. I think back to my time. I was a part of a crew with a pilot who was very much of the mindset, this is my side, this is your side, don't touch. And I remember working a man with a gun call, and I've got the suspect with a gun in his hand on camera, and I'm asking the pilot, I'm like, hey, so I don't want to come off this guy. Can you help me guide these resources that are coming in so we can set a perimeter? And his response was, nope, I'm busy doing pilot stuff. And having been a pilot now, he was not busy doing pilot stuff. Right. He was just being a dick.
Yeah.
But to contrast that with a crew who's well integrated, working in pursuit's a good example, especially in San Diego with what you guys are dealing with. You've got a TFO or a pilot who's helping the TFO out by switching frequencies, going to these different jurisdictions for them. Or in your case, you guys have all these different divisions with different frequencies. So just the ability of that pilot to without being asked, reach over, grab a radio frequency, make a broadcast on there while the TFO is broadcasting on another frequency, just makes it such a seamless process, and the success rate, I think, goes through the roof when you have these pilots and these TFOs that are working, hand in hand together and not as in opposition to each other. So yeah, that article you wrote was really good.
I think it also,
go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say, I think it also, it makes the argument for having, 2-officer flight crews where, and not only, having a 2-officer flight crew, but having a pilot that came from the TFO ranks and then is now, flying, because you understand that TFO job already because you've done it. And so you can kind of gauge what your partner needs and when he needs it and how you can effectively help without, I know a lot of times, like when we were flying, working a pursuit or something crazy, there was very little talking going on between the two of us because he's busy doing his thing. And, I'm over there in the pilot seat and I'm like, okay, I know, we need to talk to the CHP or we need to talk to this other agency. And you would just jump on the radio and start doing it without him even asking for it, because that's how well oiled, this crew was, that we just fed off of each other for that. And, a lot of times, especially like when we were flying that airplane, my partner, Jake Westall, he was from Corona PD, super motivated guy, had an aviation background as well. So that helped. And he and I would just go up and just kill it every night in that airplane because we were both just super motivated to do it and enjoyed each other's, enjoyed working with each other, enjoyed catching bad guys and having, that relationship with our folks on the ground to where, we were solely motivated by just making sure that we were providing the best product that we could for the guys on the ground. And, especially in the airplane where I can't even see what he's doing. I'm watching on my MFD, I can see that what he's looking at. But, as far as like, not even being in up front, like we are in the helicopter where you can see everything that he's doing. We still worked, very seamlessly together, catching bad guys. And it was just, when you have that level of, I guess, success and proficiency, it just motivates you every day to like, hey, we're going to go out and, like you said, we're going to go out and crush it tonight. And that's what we did every day. It was a lot of fun. And that kind of permeated through the unit, I think, with, even other guys, we'd get together and work and all we wanted to do was go out and have a good, successful shift, because that just, again, it made the unit look good in front of, the command staff. And when you're out there trying to get new equipment and they can see, hey, we provide this equipment to these guys and they just go out and, are super successful with it. I think it makes that argument a little bit easier, but definitely the argument for having, a 2-officer air crew, where both have that, training from the TFO side of it just makes it super effective.
Well, you hit on a good point. It really is so preferable to have, and let me throw in a disclaimer. I get it, but what I'm about to say is not always the ideal situation because of staffing issues and and something that was already occurring before of how difficult it is to recruit good candidates to the aviation unit has only been exacerbated by the same staffing issues that every department is facing now in the recruitment. But the point that you're hitting on of the most effective air crews having done the seats before them. So what I mean by that is a good pilot starts as a good TFO, and a good TFO starts as a good ground unit. And so that's my disclaimer. I get it that that's not always ideal, that a lot of agencies don't have that luxury to go, let's recruit from our current pool. They're either too small of a department, or they just don't have the, they don't have that wide selection of pool. But as close as you can get to having a pilot who has been first a TFO and then first a unit from the ground is the most preferable. And those are the ones that I see that excel, because when I'm sitting in the pilot seat, I can see what's going on in the TFO seat, and I know their workload, and I know when I can jump in and when I can't jump in, or when I should and I shouldn't jump in. But then I also know what they're looking for, because I'm the whole time thinking, if I was sitting in the TFO seat, what I would want to see is this. And so I'm moving the aircraft around. Now, that's a fine line, because the analogy that I use for that is that the TFO is the one who's bargaining on the car. They have the full picture. I can't just jump in and say, well, I'll give you $8,000 for the car. And they're going, I literally had this whole strategy worked out, and you just, completely screwed up the whole thing. I was going to get 12. But there is a sweet spot for that. And you can usually figure out when that's needed. And then also the times when it's not. Ryan had no problem letting me know, I got it.
Yeah.
And so I would zip it at that point, but in all seriousness you've done that job. You've sat in that seat. And then when you're sitting in that seat, what the units on the ground are looking for, the information that they would want to be hearing from the TFO. And so that whole progression is foundational. Those are the air crews that have the best luck and effectiveness. I mean, you think about it, there's a ton of analogies. Professional football teams. There's a reason why Tom Brady is as good as he is. He didn't, he wasn't a mechanic and then just with this phenom that had wild genetics. Like, he can see the field because he has the reps. He has done it for so long. And so when you're in that pilot seat and you've seen those reps, it just comes so much more naturally. And that's why a lot of the units that unfortunately don't have that luxury of being able to pick from a wide pool of candidates oftentimes struggle. And then a lot of times are resorted to that flying club of where they bring in civilians, or they've got, I know a few agencies that do it, and sometimes it works out, but they tend to have to work harder to compensate to get to that level versus the units that make it foundational. You start here and then you go there, and you see how much more naturally it comes to them. So you nailed it, absolutely dialed it in right there with that point you brought up.